For Queen Camilla, the true cost of her ambition was not exposed in a shouting match, but on a single, coldly redacted sheet of paper. When an internal palace budget dossier was placed on her desk, the visual humiliation was immediate and absolute. The operational funding for her private public relations machinery had been crossed out in red ink, slashed by an astonishing 40%. Even more devastating, the names of her children Tom and Laura had been permanently erased from the VIP travel manifests heavily subsidized by the Crown. In less than a minute, sitting in the quiet luxury of her office, Camilla realized that her financial lifeline had been severed without a single word of warning. The silence in the room was deafening as she stared at the empty payroll sheet. This is the story of a secret power grab gone wrong, an administrative ambush by Princess Anne, and the devastating realization that the Queen Consort actually owns nothing. By the end of this video, you will understand the exact mechanics of the secret power grab she attempted, how Princess Anne found out the silent, ruthless retaliation that followed, and the moment Camilla realized she was trapped in a state of commercial desperation. To understand the sheer magnitude of this financial humiliation, we must step back and examine the illusion of absolute power that Camilla had spent 30 years meticulously constructing. For decades, her ascent within the royal institution was a masterclass in survival and psychological manipulation. She transitioned from being the most controversial figure in British history to the anointed Queen Consort, wearing Queen Mary's crown and standing triumphantly on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Along the way, she systematically oversaw the institutional erasure of Princess Diana's legacy, attempting to replace the memory of the people's princess with her own carefully curated narrative of quiet duty. Because King Charles had spent his entire adult life entirely reliant on her emotional support, Camilla began to believe she was constitutionally untouchable. She assumed that her husband's reign provided her with a blank check, an unrestricted access pass to the sovereign wealth of the Windsor dynasty. Over the past year, viewers noticed her non-royal children becoming increasingly visible at state events, moving through the gilded halls as if they possessed royal blood. Camilla felt entirely secure, fully believing she had Charles completely controlled and that the financial machinery of the monarchy was hers to command. But the illusion of power always crumbles when it is tested against the rigid architecture of the British Constitution. The trigger for this crisis was a desperate high-stakes gamble driven by pure commercial desperation. Camilla is acutely aware of one terrifying reality: she possesses no sovereign assets if King Charles were to pass away. Her access to the sovereign grant, the massive public fund that pays for her staff, her wardrobe and her lifestyle would instantly vanish. Terrified of a future where her family would lose their newly acquired aristocratic status, Camilla initiated a secret plan. What appears to be true is that she directed her financial advisors to establish an independent long-term trust. The strategy was to quietly divert surplus funds from royal patronages and administrative budgets into a private endowment that would benefit her grandchildren. It was an attempt to guarantee a permanent royal adjacent lifestyle for a family that holds no constitutional standing. This was not just a breach of protocol, it was a staggering exploitation of her temporary position, a calculated effort to siphon institutional wealth for private non-royal gain. What Camilla failed to calculate was the absolute unyielding vigilance of Princess Anne. As the hardest working member of the royal family and the ultimate enforcer of institutional discipline, Anne views the Crown's assets not as a family bank account, but as a sacred sovereign trust. Princess Anne does not operate with emotional sentimentality. She operates with the cold, forensic precision of a guardian protecting her mother's enduring legacy. During a routine quarterly review of the royal household's fiscal allocations, Anne and her internal auditors uncovered the administrative paper trail left by Camilla's office. The anomalies were subtle, hidden within complex budget proposals for security and estate management. But the ultimate goal was undeniable. Camilla was attempting to lock in financial commitments that would bleed the institution long after Charles's reign ended. For Anne, this was a profound moral outrage. It was a direct threat to the financial integrity of the crown that Prince William and Catherine would soon inherit. Princess Anne did not leak the story to the tabloids. She did not engage in a messy public confrontation that would embarrass the king. Instead, she used the weaponization of administrative protocol to execute a silent, ruthless retaliation. As the Princess Royal and a highly influential figure within the Privy Purse, Anne quietly ordered a sweeping immediate audit of all subsidiary budgets connected to the Queen Consort's office. Using strict constitutional guidelines regarding the allocation of taxpayer and sovereign funds to non-royals, Anne's office systematically dismantled Camilla's financial scaffolding. In a matter of days, the legal loopholes were closed, the proposed trusts were legally blocked, and the operational budgets were radically slashed to cover only the bare minimum of constitutional duties. When that redacted budget dossier arrived on Camilla's desk, it was not merely an administrative update, it was a forensic proof of shifting power. That detail matters because it represents the exact moment the trap snapped shut. Staring at the red lines crossing out her children's travel subsidies, Camilla was forced to face the cold institutional retaliation of the Princess Royal. The realization was paralyzing. She had fought for 30 years to reach the apex of the monarchy, only to discover that she was financially blockaded by her own sister-in-law. Every backdoor maneuver she had attempted had been turned into a weapon against her. As she sat in her office, holding the undeniable proof of her own powerlessness, the terrible truth washed over her. She wears a crown, but she controls the purse strings of absolutely nothing. The red ink bleeding across the pages of that budget dossier was not merely an administrative correction. It was a constitutional eviction notice. Clutching the redacted files, Camilla bypassed her usual protocol managers and moved straight toward the king's private study. In her mind, this was a catastrophic insult that demanded the immediate and furious intervention of the sovereign. She expected Charles to pick up the phone to summon Princess Anne and Prince William, and to reassert his absolute authority over the royal household's finances. But when she presented the shattered remnants of her financial strategy to her husband, what she received was a devastating silence. King Charles did not summon his sister, he did not demand that the audits be reversed. Sitting in the quiet twilight of his study, burdened by his own mortality and the crushing weight of the crown, the king simply looked away. That silence is the psychological climax of this institutional war. It was the moment Charles implicitly admitted that while he may wear the crown, he does not have the power to dismantle the financial guardrails that protect it. He would not and could not save her. His refusal to intervene was a cold, pragmatic surrender to the fact that the sovereign wealth belongs to the future, not to the emotional attachments of his past. This agonizing realization brings us to the core of Camilla's commercial desperation. To the public, she is a woman surrounded by incalculable wealth, moving between palaces and state banquets adorned in priceless diamonds. But behind the velvet ropes, her reality is starkly different. The British monarchy is not a personal piggy bank. It is a rigid corporate structure where wealth is tied entirely to blood and succession. Camilla does not own the jewels she wears. They are locked within the royal collection. She does not own the roof over her head. It is held by the Crown Estate. And most devastatingly, she does not control the sovereign grant that currently funds her lifestyle. Her desperate attempt to siphon funds into private trusts was a frantic response to the terrifying truth that when Charles's reign ends, her financial utility ends with it. She knows that Prince William, who controls the multi-billion-dollar Duchy of Cornwall, has already shut the door on funding her private family. Princess Anne, acting as the impenetrable gatekeeper of the sovereign grant, has now bolted that door shut. Camilla is surrounded by the immense wealth of the Windsor dynasty, yet she is entirely broke in terms of sovereign equity. The institutional retaliation orchestrated by Princess Anne has established a clear and unforgiving boundary. It delivered a forensic message that the crown will not be commercialized to elevate the Parker Bowles lineage. Camilla's children, Tom and Laura, are private citizens, and Anne's ruthless audit ensured they will remain exactly that, stripped of any subsidized travel, royal protection, or backdoor financial benefits. The realization that she cannot leverage the monarchy to generate generational wealth for her own bloodline is the ultimate defeat for a woman who spent 3 decades playing a flawless game of social chess. She captured the king, but she failed to capture the kingdom. Every administrative loophole she thought she had brilliantly exploited was simply a trap waiting to be sprung by the fierce protectors of the institution. While Camilla's financial empire collapses under the weight of administrative scrutiny, a new order is rising with effortless majesty. The stark contrast between Camilla's frantic, behind-the-scenes scrambling and Catherine's dignified, uncomplaining sacrifice is impossible to ignore. As Camilla loses her grip on the royal payroll, Catherine is stepping fully into her constitutional destiny. Viewers have noticed a distinct shift in recent months. Catherine's public appearances are no longer just supportive roles, they are masterclasses in sovereign authority. When Catherine steps out wearing the iconic pearl chokers of the late Queen Elizabeth, or the sapphire rings that belong to Princess Diana. It is not merely a fashion choice. It is a calculated visual statement of continuity. She does not need to beg for budget approvals or orchestrate secret financial trusts because she is the mother of the future king. The wealth, the history, and the loyalty of the institution flow naturally toward her. While Camilla fights for a temporary lease on royal relevance, Catherine simply embodies the enduring legacy of the crown. The subtle shifts in palace protocol all point to one undeniable truth: the era of Camilla's absolute influence is over. The administrative architecture of the monarchy has walled her off. Her private initiatives will continue to be heavily scrutinized. Her PR budgets will remain strictly capped, and her ability to insert her non-royal family into the sovereign machinery has been permanently disabled by Princess Anne's financial trap. What Camilla ultimately discovered in the cold silence of the king's study is the profound isolation of her position. She has achieved the title she always wanted, only to find herself trapped inside a golden cage where she controls absolutely nothing. Her legacy will not be defined by the power she wielded, but by the swift, silent, and ruthless manner in which the institution stripped it away the moment she reached too far. Thank you for watching. If you found this forensic breakdown of the royal family's hidden financial warfare compelling, please subscribe to the channel and let us know your thoughts on Princess Anne's silent retaliation in the comments below.